Welcome to the IGEOS Show, where we help grow the passion for an extraordinary workplace. If you're listening to or watching this, we hope to strengthen your passion for a workplace that has the potential not only to have an extraordinary impact on your life, but also on the world. My name is Amit Riker, and my co-hosts are Valerio Pascotto and Timothy Galway. Now to you, Valerio.
Thank you, Amit. What drives our efforts is really a vision and credo to enrich humaneness in the workplace. For that, we interview thought leaders who have been inspired by values of compassion, empathy, and modeling to share their discoveries, challenges, and successes. Really, there is no time like now to change the tide, from hateful divisiveness to seeking similarities, from the myth of the genius to the wisdom of humankind, and from the fears of the primitive brain to the wonder of generosity and warmth.
To support you in this work of creating extraordinary workplaces, we would like to offer you a free worksheet you can download on the 5 disciplines of a high-performance team. Just go to IGEOS.net to download the sheet and learn more about us. And now, on to our guest for today. Welcome everybody. Welcome conscious leaders and conscious teams. We have a wonderful guest with us today, Rajeev Peshawaria, and I had the fortune to be able to meet him briefly at the Work Human Conference back in April, and so we're very excited to have him to have a conversation about leadership and thought leadership and many other exciting events and topics. So just to introduce Rajeev, Rajeev is the CEO of the iCliff Leadership and Governance Center. He's the author of the Wall Street Journal and Amazon bestseller, Open Source Leadership. And then he's also written Too Many Bosses, Too Few Leaders, and the co-author of Be the Change. And he's a regular contributor writer to Forbes. He is an out-of-the-box thought leader on leadership, management, and corporate governance. He has extensive global experience in leadership and organizational consulting, with a particular focus on uncovering personal and organizational leadership energy. Rajeev, it's such a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the history of how you first got started in this realm and this field, and maybe take us on an arc on through the books that you've written and how you've ended up to where you are today.
Yeah, so very quickly, I started out as a banker, became a currency trader early in my career. And as I was doing my job in various cities and countries within banking, early in my career, I noticed that, a lot of starry-eyed young people joined the industry with lots of hopes and aspirations about their career and about doing great things, but only to find themselves crushed under the weight of managers who were insensitive to their needs. And just as a hobby, I started reading about leadership and management while I was working. Long story short, 7 years in, and I decided to move into human resources and start working in the area of leadership development, which is what I started doing then. And then for the next sort of 15 or 20 odd years, I did that. That took me to many parts of the world. And then finally, in 2009, I decided that, I wanted to work on my own rather than within one corporate. So I said, what do I need to do to prepare myself for that? And the answer was, well, I feel a little bit differently about leadership. Why not write a book? And that's how Too Many Bosses, Too Few Leaders was born. And that came out in 2011, did well. And I really enjoyed, teaching from it. I really enjoyed the fact that, it was helping a lot of people. And that's what got the journey started. And then Open Source Leadership, which came out last October, is my third baby.
Okay, wonderful. You have a very fascinating perspective that you present, and I love the tagline that you have, that you speak about, challenging conventional wisdom in leadership and growth. Could you tell us a little bit about how you see leadership differently than what you hear in the common discussion around leadership today?
Yeah, it's very interesting. there are a lot of misconceptions about the word leadership itself. There's a question that I've been asking people for almost 20 years now, and that is, of all the bosses you ever worked for in your career, how many would you call a truly great leader? And it doesn't matter if there are only 25 people in the room. It doesn't matter if there are 5,000 people in the room, anywhere in the world, any industry, any age group. And the average answer in every room is exactly the same. It's somewhere between 0 and 2.
Wow.
When I ask for a show of hands, a lot of hands go up at 0. 1 seems to be the modal answer. So even if you are, in your 60s, the answer is I've had 0 or 1 or at best 2 great leaders that I've had the chance to work for. Point being, good leadership seems to be very rare, right? So what's the problem? And we think it's because of some misconceptions about leadership, and there are many, and let me just talk about 2 of them. One is we have been confusing followership for leadership for God knows how long. As parents, we love our children when they obey and listen to us, and we sort of discipline them when they don't. So we realize as kids that, there is this authority figure that we must follow. In school and college, the teacher's pets are the most obedient kids. And the most obedient kid is made the monitor or prefect of the class. Followership is rewarded in the name of leadership. Some companies say, we will measure your employee engagement results of your area of the company, and we will link that to your compensation because leadership is important to us. Now, if my bonus or compensation is linked to my employee engagement survey results, that makes me a pleaser, not a leader, right? So that whole confusion about leadership, followership being confused as leadership continues into the corporate career of an individual. You're a CEO now, and you make a presentation to your board saying, your strategy needs to change. Here's a very well researched new strategy and business plan. Board, please approve. The first question the board asks is, where's the best practice report from McKinsey that says that 5 other companies have successfully done it? And the order is follow best practice. Notice the word, big follow best practice. I mean, best practice was great until the 1980s, but today, with information almost instantly flowing from the moment it's created, following best practice is followership. It's not leadership. So, we've been confusing followership as leadership for the longest time, and that needs to change. We have to create best practice, not follow best practice.
Right. So that was one of the things I found interesting and fascinating when you were going through and identifying certain myths in your chapter, Leadership Energy, Not Competencies. And leadership can be learned. The myth number 5, leadership can be learned through case studies, role plays, and competency models. So why is that an issue?
So, with no offense to many people, but the fact is that, one approach to leadership development in many organizations is to look at how leaders in the past in our organization became successful. Why were they great leaders? And let's create a competency model around what they did. So pretty, elaborate models are created, So Jack Welch was a great leader at GE in the 20th century. What did he eat for breakfast? What did he do when he first came to work? How did he talk to people? Blah, blah, blah. And a very, elaborate model is created about it. And then in leadership classes, we say, okay, you want to be a great leader like Jack Welch? Well, let's teach you what he did, and we teach you the competency model. And then we say, all right, now let's put you in triads and let's get you to do role plays. You play Jack, you play John, you play Mary. And then we will, have all 3 of you get a chance to play Jack, to practice Jack's 3-step formula. I'm making this up. It's not about Jack Welch and GE, by the way. And at the end of 45 minutes, as you practice Jack Welch's 3-step formula, all 3 of you will be great leaders like Jack Welch. But last I checked the dictionary, copying somebody else's behavior was an act of followership, not leadership. So I think look back competency models, those days are gone, because the world of business today changes so fast.
Right.
And so we need to forward-looking, creative competencies. I don't have a problem with that. But you go to a business school, some of the top business schools, all you do in a 2-week course on leadership is read and discuss case study after case study after case study. If we were to make better leaders, some business schools, I won't name any, say the best way to become a leader is to learn from other people's mistakes. And therefore, we only use the case method as a teaching method. If we were to become great leaders by reading and discussing case studies, everybody would be a great leader because we've read and discussed enough cases in our lives. So that's the issue.
Right. So I love where one of the things that stood out for me in terms of sort of the impetus for writing the book is talking about new and bold forms of leadership for the future, because we're dealing with very very different global issues. And so, how can you speak to that, and how that ties into you have a lot of this theme about leadership energy. So how does that tie together, and what is leadership energy about?
So, the first thing is that, in just the last 5 to 8 years, thanks to technology, life at home and at work has changed beyond recognition. Think WhatsApp, think, all the technologies that we wear and how we live and how we communicate. I joke about the fact that even so information is knowledge is now Googled, taxis are Ubered, even life and relationships are Facebooked, meaning that, we live our lives openly. So there are two or three main points about what we are calling the open source era, the current times. One is it's all about speed. The other is it's all about transparency. Ordinary people are more empowered than ever before in human history. Why? Because everybody has a weapon of mass destruction in their pocket. Everybody. And I can destroy anybody's reputation I want within minutes on social media. Finally, the other aspect is that everybody around is totally exposed and naked. Leaders particularly are naked because, every word, every action of theirs is out in the public. So ordinary people are very empowered. It's all about speed, and leaders are naked. That's what the open source era is all about. Now, on the other hand, this is all about technology. On the other hand, there are daunting challenges in the world today. Population is going to go to 10 billion by 2061. How are we going to feed all these people? How are we going to get clean drinking water? Just to give you one statistic, only 4.5 billion people today out of 7.5 have access to a working toilet, whereas 6 billion of us have a mobile phone. Most of these toiletless people are in Asia. So there are exciting opportunities in the open source era thanks to technology, but there are also daunting challenges. We cannot think about leadership just in terms of a set of competencies. We certainly cannot think of leadership like we've thought so before as followership. We can't think of leadership as a title and a position that I have the titles, so I have authority over you, do as you say. Those are the notions about leadership that need to stop. If we are going to keep this planet safe for the next generation, and if we are going to exploit the opportunities that the open source era of connectivity offers us, we're going to have to think about leadership as a burning desire to create a better future. So leadership has nothing to do with the title or your position or what you do and the competencies you have. It is all about, do you have a burning desire to create a better future, and are you willing to do it? Now, it sounds like a great definition, but it's a big problem. Most people don't want to do this. Why? Because the moment you say, come with me, let's create change, or let's create a better future, right? All you get is resistance from all corners. Resistance is the constant companion of leadership if seen in the way of creating a better future. So why does Nelson Mandela not give up even through 27 years of prison? Why does somebody like a Howard Schultz not give up against all odds while he was trying to create and grow the Starbucks company, right? When he tried to raise money to buy the tiny little Starbucks back then, he went to 242 investors and 230 turned him away. Why did he keep going? And that's the idea behind leadership energy. They all have this unlimited source of intrinsic energy that prevents them from giving up. So leadership is not about competencies. It's not about titles. It's about having that inner energy that says, I want to create a better future and I will not give up. Finally, where does such energy come from? Good news, all of us have it. Bad news, very few of us will harness it and find it. You want to find long-lasting leadership energy like Nelson Mandela? Well, two questions. What are my values that I will never compromise no matter what happens? Now I start living my life with according to a set of values that I so believe in that even if it hurts, I will still follow them. Even if it hurts my loved ones, I will still keep to them. That's one. And the second, do I have a values-based purpose in life? So clarity of values, the ability to live those values no matter what, and pursuing a values-based purpose. When you have those two things, you have long-lasting leadership energy. So that is why my crusade almost is to move leadership development away from competencies and role plays and case studies and titles and positions and skills like influencing others, etc., to helping people find their personal leadership energy, and then help organizations to harness collective leadership energy.
This topic of values and purpose, I recall seeing you mention it. I believe you talked about it in Too Many Bosses too. Where's that quote? There we go. Purpose defines what you want to create, and values define how you will create it. And so, how could you say somebody could be harnessing that? How does that shape their engagement in their teams, their engagement in their companies? Because values and purpose is thrown, around like a dime a dozen, and so it's gotten such a saturated sense. How would you differentiate what the power of purpose and values really can provide us?
Some things are universal truths, and values and purpose is nothing new. It has been around for a long time. For the last 25 years, all I've done is studied great leaders, and I found that great leaders, what they had in common was a deep clarity and conviction in a set of values, and they pursued a values-based purpose. If your purpose is based on your values, what happens is you lose fear. And once you lose fear, you don't give up, because every mishap or misstep is a learning step, not a failure. And once you don't give up, you can never fail. So that's the idea. Why does somebody say, no, I shouldn't take this risk, or I shouldn't do that? Because deep down, there is some fear of failure, a fear of rejection. But if you have a purpose greater than yourself, then those doubts and those fears don't come up. No, it's worth it. Every time, he felt like giving up in prison, Nelson Mandela closed his eyes and imagined the Rainbow Nation. And that gave him, and even when he came out, his wife and his daughter left him when he talked about forgiveness and reconciliation. But he did not give up his value of forgiveness and reconciliation. He says, it doesn't matter. My family is not 2 people. My family is 44 million people. Wow. So you have to lose fear. And the only way to lose fear is to believe in those values and keep pursuing that values-based purpose. So yeah, you're right. When I wrote Too Many Bosses, Too Few Leaders, very few people were talking about leadership energy and values and purpose. Today, it's like thrown around like, dime a dozen, as you rightly said. But it wasn't new even then, back in 2010. This is the basic foundation of leadership. Unfortunately, instead of teaching people how to find their personal leadership energy, most leadership development talks about competencies and copying other people's behavior and reading case studies and stuff like that.
Right.
And then we wonder why people go astray, because, the why of leadership is more important than anything else. The how is less important. The how you can learn as you go along. But why do I want to be a leader? That's the question that's not asked.
How can companies, or how can existing leaders cultivate asking that question, either of themselves? Obviously, they take the initiative to ask themselves, but how can we cultivate that amongst a broader company, the whys of the people within the company?
I think the awareness is increasing. I think there is definitely a move. I'm not the only one talking about it now. Movement away from the classic leadership development techniques to what we are talking about. So I'm hopeful. But I asked the basic question. You want to be happy? Forget about being a leader and being a successful career person and in a company and this, that, and the other. You want to be happy, right? What is happiness? And you have to ask yourself, honestly, what is happiness? Well, happiness is not just possessing a lot of money and possessing a lot of power. I know a lot of people who are very rich and very powerful and not happy inside. Happiness is pursuing something that you are passionate about and seeing your own progress there. So, having a values-based purpose again, and feeling like I am making a difference towards it, that gives you happiness. That gives you genuine happiness. So people should be asking these questions of themselves for very selfish reasons, for their own happiness. How can you feel happy if you don't have, if you don't know your values and your purpose? How can you feel successful if you don't have a purpose? What is the yardstick? Otherwise, you'll keep measuring your happiness and your success with a bigger car and a bigger house and a bigger this and a bigger that. And those are temporary things. Real leaders are lit up from within.
Right.
This leadership energy.
Right.
And then how do you maximize the energy of the entire organization that you lead? That's a whole new topic, but which I discuss a lot in Too Many Bosses, Too Few Leaders through a model called Brains, Bones, and Nerves. But before that, you have to light yourself up from within.
How would you describe, so one of the things it was fascinating to look through, read through, this concept you touched upon of the naked autocrat creates breakthrough results. Yeah. And how does that balance with we have the world of holacracy, we want flatter organizations and whatnot. But where's the tension there, and what do you have to say about that?
Well, this whole thing about flatter organizations, I've been hearing this for the longest time, and the fact of the matter is human beings by nature are hierarchical. Right from when we are little kids, we see parents as hierarchy, and we learn about the fact that there's bigger authority out there. And all throughout, we look towards people we consider leaders in our lives as to how they behave and take clues on what the right behavior or the wrong behavior is. So whether we like it or not, that's the nature of the human being, right? So I don't know much about flatter organizations. I mean, we talk a lot about flatter organizations, but whether east or west, people look up to authority for clues on how to behave. And I've worked in 8 countries now, lived in 14 cities, and I found it in different industries, and I found that to be true everywhere. Coming back to the naked autocrat, here's the problem. You pick up any book, you pick up any literature on leadership styles, chances are it will sing the praises of an all-inclusive democratic style of leadership. You want to go fast, go alone, they say. You want to go further, take as many people along with you, build consensus. I love you all. Consensual leadership is the way to go. And anything autocratic, anything dictatorial is frowned upon. And yet you have people like Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore. These people rocked the history of the world by doing the exact opposite, by being autocrats. I argue that even Mandela and Gandhi were autocrats, because the people of South Africa wanted an eye for an eye. He said, no, you will listen to me and we will forgive. I believe Gandhi was an autocrat. Indians wanted to fight the British, with guns and knives. And he said, no, we'll fight them with nonviolence and love and humility. So on the one hand, you have the Steve Jobs and the Lee Kuan Yews of the world. On the other hand, you have, all the literature that says, a democratic leadership it is. Which one is true? So we asked thousands of people in 28 countries a few questions. We gave them a set of attributes, half of which were sort of my way or the highway attributes. The other half were sort of democratic, I love you all attributes, and said, choose the top 3 commonalities between these famous leaders. And all top 5, not top 3, came out to be autocratic behaviors in every single of the 28 countries that we researched.
Did that surprise you when you saw the results of that?
Well, actually, it didn't, because we had the hypotheses. Okay. But the fact that the results were completely unanimous across all 28 countries, that surprised us. We thought there'll be some variation by country, but no. So it turns out that, while politically correct thing to say is that, be democratic, etc., somewhere deep down, we have this urge to be told what to do, and we look up to authority. And somebody who's willing to take charge, we feel safe under them. I think that's what the data is telling us. Now, we asked the question several times, and every time we got the same results. The details are in the book. But this also causes, just like my definition of leadership, this also causes a big problem. The data says you need to be autocratic in order to succeed and create breakthrough results and innovation in today's open source era. On the other hand, ordinary people, as I said earlier, are super empowered.
Right.
So and you're naked as a leader. So why would anybody let you be autocratic even if you wanted to be? We are seeing everywhere that, ruthless dictators are being brought down. And it's a matter of time. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. That the power of the common person is going to bring these people down. And you've seen some examples in the corporate world lately as well. So you need to be an autocrat. People are powerful today more than ever before. They won't let you be. What do? We call this the 21st century leadership dilemma. And the answer is that's offered in the book is that you have to practice positive autocracy. And there are 5 keys to positive autocracy. So does that help?
Absolutely, absolutely. With taking the other side, you talk about open source enterprise leadership, and then you talk about the crowdsourced innovation and leadership succession. So how does that compare to having these 5 key elements of being a positive autocratic leader compared to tapping into the wisdom of the crowds and innovation that it can afford us or present to us?
One of the 5 keys is giving people freedom within the framework. So you don't be autocratic about everything. And one of the keys is, which I call the dance of the naked autocrat, is you be autocratic about your values and your purpose. Why? Because you've thought that through very slowly, very deliberately, very carefully, and you've arrived at your life's purpose and a set of values with which you'll go about it. Now, be autocratic about that. Do not let people pour water over those because you've thought that, unless, of course, very compelling information. Because if you listen to all the feedback that you ever get, you won't achieve anything. If you listen to no feedback, you will also not achieve anything. So you got to be firm about your value. So be autocratic about values and purpose. At the same time, be humble and compassionate with people. So that's the dance of the naked autocrat, right? And second, you have to give people freedom within the framework. So in the organizational context, we have values and we have rules, right? And we are saying build a culture based on values, not based on rules. So here's the framework. The values and the purpose is common. That doesn't go anywhere. But within that, in different geographies, in different areas, you have the freedom to do what you need to do to achieve that. So that's how you balance the need for that positive autocracy and crowdsourcing. So within the framework where crowdsourcing is the right answer, let's tap into the wisdom of the crowds. Because let's take advantage. Talent and innovation used to be scarce, and a lot of people made a lot of money, touting this idea about the war for talent and this, that, and the other. My argument is that talent was never scarce. How can talent be scarce when we have 7.5 billion people? Innovation is not scarce. How can it be when there are 7.5 smart people, billions, almost a lot of which who are very smart people in the world? They were never scarce. Today, it's easier than ever before to get to them because technology and connectivity allows you to find that talent and find that innovation wherever it is. And crowdsourcing is one of those ways to do that.
Very well. Wonderful. Well, Rajeev, we're coming near to the end of our time, and I feel like we could be going on for another half hour or so. There's so many fascinating concepts. 80-20, that's another common theme you're talking about. But since we are winding down here, what lasting thoughts would you like us to leave us with, particularly for companies and leaders, teams that are really looking to cultivate this consciousness, this awareness to make an impact in the world? What would you like to share?
So maybe I'll share this, that there are 2 notions in management that have been around forever. One is that, to get the maximum productivity in an organization, we must encourage every single employee to get stretch goals or stretch KPIs. And then we should manage them closely as managers to help them achieve those goals, right? So that's one idea, that everybody must be given stretch goals and they should be managed and supervised so that they can achieve them. And second notion is, if left to their own devices, people will do as little work, if at all. So therefore, this idea that they need to be supervised. I challenge both those notions. My idea is that if you want to maximize the productivity of an organization, set them free. Let them choose how little they want to work or how much they want to work. And that sounds crazy, but let's look at this. The 80-20 that you just mentioned, since 1906, nobody has been able to debunk 80-20, which is that 20% of the 20% of the causes create 80% of the effects, right? In business, it is that 20% of your people produce 80% of your results, 20% of your customers produce 80% of your complaints. Everywhere the 80-20 applies. And in measuring human performance in any organization, a derivative of the 80-20 is 20-60-20, where 20% are high performers, 60% are average performers, 20% are bottom performers. Now, in the gig economy, an Uber driver chooses how much he wants to earn. Do I want to be a top 20% earner? Do I want to be a middle 60% earner because I only drive when my kids are at school? Or do I want to be a bottom 20% earner because I only drive on weekends? I decide. I have that freedom, right? If companies gave the same freedom to all their employees, choose where you want to be. You want to be in the top 20%? Well, we're going to pay you very well. We're going to promote you. We're going to give you high bonuses. You want to be in the middle 60? Fine, let's have that contract. You will still be a good support person, but know that your bonuses and your career progression will be average. Can we have this honest conversation which says that, look, I want to do minimum work because I want to spend my time on Broadway, practicing music. I'm okay with minimum pay and minimum bonuses. What's wrong with that honest conversation? But such honest contracts never happen. So the productivity of the organization will not suffer because the top 20% who choose to come forward and want more and more work are going to produce 80% of your results anyway. And now if you remove the stigma of non-performance for the remaining 60 and the bottom 20, even they will produce whatever they produce with more happiness and less stress. So overall productivity should go up, not down. So my humble message is, if you want to increase productivity, particularly in today's open source era, set people free to do as little or as much as they want. Allow them to choose where they want to be on that performance bell curve. They will be happy. Organization will be more successful. It works for everyone.
Rajeev, thank you for those lasting thoughts. Rajeev Peshawaria, his latest book, Open Source Leadership. Rajeev, if people wanted to learn more about you, find more about your work, where can they go?
Well, certainly do connect on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and my email is at the back of the book as well. So any means possible, I'd love to. And we also have a portal on our website, on the open source leadership portal. If anybody wants to leave comments, if anybody wants to challenge anything or contribute, because the open source era is just beginning. And this book is not the be all and the end all. This is the beginning of the conversation. So feel free to join the conversation, and hopefully we will, together keep updating this work.
Fantastic. Rajeev, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Conscious leaders, conscious teams, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be continuing the conversation with other thought leaders in the weeks to come. And hope you have a fantastic day and are able to take away some wisdom and ways that we can be applying this to our own meaningful work. Thanks again. We'll be talking soon. Thank you for joining us today. We have many more exciting thought leaders to come on this show. If you enjoyed this interview, please click the like button and also subscribe so that you can stay tuned to learn from other powerful thought leaders in future shows. We would also appreciate your comments and feedback on the show, as well as who else you would like to hear from. And don't forget to visit our site, IGEOS.net, to download the free worksheet on the 5 disciplines of a high-performance team. See you next time.